Hello, David Zaritsky for the Bond Experience. Welcome back. We are here to do another Bond community. And I've got to start off by saying I'm a little embarrassed because, I always start off these things by introducing people. I don't think this face, this gentleman, this voice needs much introduction, but I'm still going to do it. Tom Sears from James Bond Radio. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. You're too kind. You're making me blush a little bit there with that introduction.
If that's going to make you blush, 5 minutes are going to be really rough on you.
Oh, shit.
I promise this won't be too much of a gush fest. In fact, let's start. I want to start with kind of a softball, very easy question. So easy, it's multiple choice. All right, here we go.
Okay, let's do it.
Did Chris leave JBR because A, he couldn't get his green M&Ms, B, because you hurt him physically and emotionally, or C, he just went too deep into James Bond and couldn't pull himself out and needed a break?
I would say it was it was what you would call a George Lazenby, total prima donna. Didn't want to record without $1,000 in his back pocket every time. It just became a nightmare, totally unmanageable. I of course jest. No, it was the last one, definitely. I think basically I think what it all boils down to is we both needed a bit of a break because back at the beginning of the year, I was moving back to the UK. Chris was moving house and all the rest of it. And it was just like, damn, we need an extended break just so we can sort our lives out. Because as you might imagine, knocking out a weekly podcast it can be an all-consuming thing sometimes, especially for Chris, because Chris was always the one who kind of did the planning side of things. He was always pre, I was always post. So he would be the one planning out the episodes, doing the research and all that kind of stuff. And then once we'd recorded, it's my job to edit it and get it all up on the internet and all that kind of stuff. So you can imagine, like, I would say my job was probably the slightly easier one because it's like there's a defined thing. We've recorded this thing. Now I just need to snip those bits out and then it's done. Whereas for Chris, it's like, what else can I find out for this episode? So like for him, I think it was more of a consuming beast. And I think, so we planned, we said to ourselves back at the beginning of the year, let's like have a good 6 months off and then wait for Bond 25 to start ramping up and then we'll jump back in. So we sort of penciled in like September time. And then, of course, we had the Majesty's OHMSS 50 thing, which that was in June, I think. And Chris organised this extra trip on the end for all the JBR people, where we just did this road trip through Europe and we did some Goldfinger locations, Goldeneye Dam, Lake Como, all these amazing spots. And he organised the whole thing single-handed. And I mean, like the spreadsheet he gave us, and I will put my hands up and say I had nothing to do with any of it. I just kind of let him do his thing. The spreadsheet he gave us, every last hour of every day was accounted for. Like when you listen to a movie review, you like knowing that Chris has done all the research and planned the beats of the episode, you will know how detail oriented that man is. So it was like every second of every day was accounted for, every meal, every journey, every single thing. And I think by the end of that trip, he was just a bit bonded out. He was just like mentally exhausted and was like, I just need to go and lie down. So fair play to him, because I think anybody would have burnt out way before even that. So it's I think it's just one of those things. I personally, I think it just is a case of more time, whether it's a year down the line, a couple of years down the line or whatever, he'll get the itch again. He'll be like, you know what, I'm up for talking some Bond again. And it's not only that, it's of course like we all have other things we have to do in life as well outside of Bond, believe it or not. And sometimes when it's all consuming, it can be tough when you really should be spending some time on that kind of more important thing rather than just kind of chatting about Bond on Skype. So it's that's the real situation.
So what I'm hearing is the answer is B, you hurt him emotionally and physically.
Yeah,
no, I'm kidding. But that's and it was a little bit unfair, a little bit kind of pithy that I wanted to start with that because quite frankly, that was a shot heard around the world when we first all saw that announcement from Chris and kind of the post announcement from you as well. And that had to take so much emotional planning for the two of you to come together and go, look, we've got to speak to the community. You must have realized that this was going to have an impact. And kudos to both you and Chris, because you have ingrained yourselves in our lives in a very intricate way. So, I mean, what was your thought process that you and Chris went through and said, oh my gosh, we've got to tell our son that we're getting divorced for a time?
That is kind of how it feels a bit, isn't it, actually? Well, so basically, we penciled in September to come back, and then obviously I think it was middle of August they dropped that No Time to Die title reveal, little mini 30-second teaser thing. So I'd kind of, because there was so much crap in the press, like in the early stages of the film and all that negativity, I'd kind of stepped away from it a little bit and thought, I'm just going to let it heat up. I'm just going to ignore that because it's putting me in a bad mood listening to all that crap. So I'd kind of kept Bond 25 at the time a little bit at arm's length, and then as soon as that teaser dropped and I heard those 3 notes and saw Daniel walk into frame, there was something about the way that Bond was looking at me that just set my whole body on fire. I don't know what it was, and I was immediately like, oh my god, here we go. So I jumped on the phone with Chris. I was like, what do you think? You were up for doing JBR? And he's like, to be honest, man, I'm just not up for it right now, kind of thing. So we had a big old chat and all the rest of it, and it's all good. We said from day one, if it ever feels like a chore or it becomes a slog or it kind of sort of bleeds into other areas of your life that's more important, then we would just stop, and it's totally fair enough. And we had that agreement from day one. So we did kind of say like, what the hell do we say? And he was like, I'm totally happy for you to carry on with somebody else or whatever. And I was like, I don't even know if I want to be honest, because it's just this thing we built up together over 5 years, and it's just not going to feel the same. So yeah, I thought, okay, we'll just put a little note out just to kind of let everybody know, because obviously No Time to Die was starting to ramp up. We were getting so many messages being like, when's the podcast coming back? Are you going to do an emergency, teaser thing? And I'm just like, I would love to, but there's this little issue. So we put that out, and I kind of sort of dwelt on it for a couple of weeks, and it's a tricky thing to talk about, because it's like a podcast Chris and I've sort of built up together, but like there were so many messages that came in that it's easy to forget. Like when you're just sitting, and I'm sure it's exactly the same for you, it's so easy to forget when you're sitting there on Skype chatting away to someone and just having a laugh. It's a hobby essentially at the end of the day. But there were so many messages that came in that were saying that JBR had helped them through tough times and things like that. And it was just like, holy shit. I imagined people would be like, oh, that's a shame. You had a big break. So we kind of saw it coming a little bit maybe, and nowadays there's like Bond podcasts are 10 a penny. There's loads of them around. Back when we started, there was probably like 2 or 3. And I thought there's enough Bond stuff going on that I didn't think people would, I'm sure they'd be disappointed, but I didn't realize they'd be quite that disappointed. Yeah. But yeah, I feel uncomfortable talking about it, obviously, because it's almost like I'm, blowing my own trumpet or whatever. But it's, it was quite a moving thing to see quite how much a silly little podcast that Chris and I created sort of meant so much to people on a deeper level than just geeking out,
Well, I think just if I could share my perception out of, I'm like one of, tens of hundreds of thousands of people. For me, the impact when I first heard the news was more around, there's tons of podcasts and YouTubers and Instagram galore, lots of social media to choose from. Just like when you go to a grocery store, there's lots of different crackers and cookies and there's beer. If you can't shop for milk, which is the basic foundation of a lot of people's staples to do all your cooking and baking, you're going to miss something. It's going to change everything that you do. JBR has been a foundation in the Bond community that helps to cement people. A lot of people say, oh, David, it's so nice of you to do this Bond community stuff once a week and bring the world a little bit closer. You guys really, I pay total homage and kudos to you guys for really starting that role of bringing guests and people and connecting all of that together. So suddenly when someone loses that connection, it's emotional.
Oh, well, that's very kind of you to say. It's bananas that it's become this thing that it has, because ultimately it was just Chris and I making it up as we went along. Do you know what I mean? It was like just trying to work out what a podcast even is, really. Yeah. And it just sort of grew and became this thing. So yeah, that's lovely to hear. It's nice that so many people enjoy it, and I'm going to do my best to kind of do justice to it moving forward with the new people on board. So we'll see how it goes. It might be rubbish without Chris. I'm just going to put my hands up. It might be terrible, but
let's start there. It's going to be shit, and then we'll work up from there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But here's something. So I consciously made a decision on this interview for everybody watching that we would spend a few minutes, which is why I put it right up front, because I would imagine so many people have come to you and maybe other people interviewing you, and they start with the Chris thing, almost like with Daniel Craig. They start with the wrist lashing thing, and he's like, oh, shit, now I got to answer this. All right.
Yeah.
We love Chris. He can always come back. He will always be with us. I'm talking like he's dead. He's not. And he always loves James Bond. Let's talk about Tom Sears. So you then had to pull up your bootstraps and go, right, I could go in a lot of different directions. I could do roundtables. I could go out there, be a man on the street. I could do this. I could do that. What was your thought process? And tell us about the evolution of where you took it from there.
Well, I suppose in my mind, we're merely keeping Chris's seat warm. I feel like there were, like I said before, no matter how long it takes, I just know the dude, and there will come a point where he's like, oh man, I really want to get back talking to some Bond. That day will definitely come, I'm sure of it. And of course, the door will always be open. He created this just as much as I did, so it's in my mind, we're just keeping the seat warm for him until that day arrives. But yeah, I thought to myself, it was I had a long think, and I thought the silly thing, what you don't want to do is try and sort of do exactly the same thing, because it's like, yeah, I don't know whether it's big in America, but we've got a TV show here called Top Gear, and there was like 3 hosts on it who had like the best chemistry between the 3 of them, and then those guys left, and they drafted in 3 new hosts, and they obviously didn't have that chemistry, they didn't have the camaraderie, and they just tried to do exactly the same thing, and everybody hated it. So it's kind of like that was like the warning thing. You don't want to end up like new Top Gear. So I guess, yeah, I still don't know exactly how it's going to play out, because we're starting to record it next week basically, so we haven't actually recorded the first episode yet. But I thought ultimately, I think what makes a podcast appealing, just in the stuff that I would listen to, is the people involved. That's the most important thing, in the sense that you can have the most knowledgeable Bond person in the world, but at the same time, if they don't have a little bit of personality and there's that sense of fun in there, then it's just not going to be as good. So I'd never be about sort of like recruiting people just because of like their level of knowledge or anything like that. To me, it's got to be all about personality. So yeah, I think when we sort of broke the news, when I sort of put the news out that, you know, we're going to carry on and, you know, JBR will return and all that stuff, I think there were probably every other comment was, you should get Dan Gale involved. You should get Dan Gale involved. And like, if anybody doesn't know, Dan put out some episodes previously for JBR where, you know, he made this documentary called You Only Live Splice about John Glenn's editing, and he literally green screened himself into The Spy Who Loved Me talking about it during the gun battle on the Paris at the end. It just looks amazing. It's just the most genius level thing I've ever seen in all my life. So I'm like, okay, that's
by the way, I've seen it several times. Yeah. It's unbelievable, and it is like a movie. It's not like a little 30-second clip. It's amazing what he did.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a full-on documentary. Easily could make it on any of the official Bond releases and all that kind of stuff. It's just, the dude is just an absolute genius. So I thought, okay, that's an absolute no-brainer to get Dan involved. Obviously, getting JW back for the music of Bond, that's, you know, just going to carry on, of course. And then Jack, obviously, he's our social media kind of guru who kind of keeps everybody up to date with all the news, and he had his Comics of Bond series interviewing those kind of guys, which I think is an interesting thing, because that's more of a niche topic that not everybody's into. If you talk about the films, everybody knows the films, but those, me included, aren't that familiar with what's going on in the comic book world. So he's going to come back for that. And I thought, okay, so one kind of last person was Brian Dobson, who a lot of people probably wouldn't know from JBR, because he's only sort of been on a couple of times over the years. But if you've ever been on any of our sort of JBR meetups, like, he's one of the mainstays kind of thing. And a bit of a funny story. He's got the right sort of, like, he's got a huge amount of knowledge, but he's got the right sort of personality, the right sort of positive energy for it. You know, the last thing I want to do is sit across from somebody who's just going to be on a downer and moaning about things they don't like all day long. Brian's got the right positive energy. He's got a lot of knowledge. And there was a funny story, actually, when we did our sort of Euro Bond trip after the Peace Gloria thing. We were at Lake Como, And we went to I forget what the place is called now, but the villa where Bond's recovering with Vesper. That was just like down the road from where we were staying. So we all went down there and we were going to do this tour, and then all of a sudden like the heavens opened and it was just torrential downpour. And we're like, this is kind of spoiling it a little bit for me. I don't, because I always say the first time you see a location is always the most magical, and I don't want it to be spoiled. So both of us were like, I don't fancy standing in a garden. Like it was proper downpour. Everybody's like huddling under the archways and stuff. So we're like, should we just go home? So we're like, yeah, let's do it. So we went and we had some lunch. Some of the other guys kind of peeled back and we all had a bit of lunch together. Then Brian and I were like, let's go back to the house. And then so we started walking away. And then as we're sort of like 20 minutes down the road, we were like, do you know how to get back at all? And he was like, no, I thought you did. And we were both completely lost. And so we ended up literally circling around the little town in Lake Como, trying to find where the villa was we were staying, and we were hopelessly lost. And there was a real low point where the heavens opened again, even more strongly. And we were on the road with no shelter whatsoever. And we were both soaked totally through to the skin. And it was just this moment where we looked at each other and it was like, you just have to laugh at a moment like this because this is so dreadful. And that kind of stuck in my mind. And I thought, you know what, if there's a man who can help me go through the tough time of relaunching JBR, it's going to be old Dobson. So, yeah. Well,
it's interesting because so I'm sure a lot of people imagined what it was going to be like. Was it going to be a Willy Wonka gold ticket? Would people wake up in the morning and there'd be an email that say, it's you're the one. But what I thought about a lot was you, particularly Tom Sears. I'm not talking about JBR now, but you, Tom Sears, have always been an individual in the Bond community that chose to celebrate Bond. So there's lots of people that are just like, ooh, I saw that thing that's wrong, or ooh, oh my gosh, that's this issue and that issue, and I can't believe they went with this coloring. You actually sit there and yes, you will critique when it's appropriate, but you choose to lift up the franchise. And that's not a forced thing, but you're a child in a man's body.
Yeah.
It's like a logical thing. But I would imagine going through and understanding here are the individuals that are going to help JBR. You also had to choose people that really celebrate Bond as opposed to riddle it with bullets. Exactly that. Yeah. I think ultimately it all comes down to a way of looking at things. It's always a downer when you hang out with somebody and all they want to talk about is what was wrong with Spectre, or why Never Say Never Again is rubbish, or why Octopus is bad, and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, yes, but why? Like, you could acknowledge those things. I think we're all in agreement. The Blofeld brother plot was a bit rubbish. The last third of the Spectre film was a bit rubbish. But at the end of the day, why spend all your energy talking about that? I feel like when those films come up, that's all you hear is, oh, the last act was terrible and the brother plot line was awful. Yeah. And it's like, well, yeah, but why is that the only thing anybody ever wants to talk about? There's so much good to explore in that. You acknowledge the bad, obviously, and A View to a Kill, Roger was obviously too old, but okay, let's deal with that, and then let's see what we've got that's positive. And you look at the score of that film, that's amazing. Some of the visuals are incredible, hanging off the bottom of the Zeppelin in front of the Golden Gate Bridge. Good God, there's so much good in there. Mayday, Zorin, it's all great, but if you're going to sit there and just totally write the film off because Roger's knocking on in years, it's like, it's a shame because you're losing out on stuff to be enjoyed. And dude, there is enough negativity in the world. The last place I want to experience that is when it comes to Bond. You've only got to turn the news on and it's Brexit this, Donald that, God knows what. And I'm just like, oh God, I just turn it off immediately and I don't want to listen to any of it. It's escapism. It should be, so many people have said that our Bond hobby is our therapy. It's probably cheaper than medication. And when you go for therapy to calm down and, turn off things because of investigations and, the economy and things like that, and suddenly you're getting hit by more bullets, you can't escape them. So I'm with you all the way.
Yeah, I think there, especially with how the media behaves these days, all they're out to do is just wind everybody up, so drive some more ad dollars their way. That's what it is. It's just trying to divide people and just instill fear in everything. You know what I mean? Everybody's got to be scared of everything, and God knows what's going to come around the corner. And after Brexit, the whole country's going to collapse. No, it won't. It'll be all right. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I've been around on this planet long enough to have seen so many things, so many occasions where the news has been like, this is going to be World War III, and then it just doesn't happen. Or the world's going to end in 2012, and it just doesn't happen. You know, I remember being a kid, and it was like, the hole above in the ozone layer above Australia is going to kill us all. We have to change all the aerosols we're using and all this kind of stuff. And I read the other day, it's not a problem anymore. It's just slowly healing itself, and within a few years, the hole in the ozone layer is going to be totally gone. And you never hear that on the news. You never hear any good news. You never hear any of the positive. So I don't think it's people's fault in a lot of ways, because we're trained to look for the downside of everything, because it's just pumped into your ears all day long. My manifesto is turn that shit off. Talk about some Bond and keep it positive, and you'll be a lot happier for it.
Well, I think it's an edict. And for those of you on my channel that are seeing Tom maybe for the first time, maybe even hearing about James Bond radio for the first time, this is the type of thing that people have become addicted to when they expect JBR. And I will tell you, that first episode, it's going to be a tall order. I mean, and no pressure, but talk to us a little bit about the format. Are you going to have one of those guest hosts on at a time? So it'll be you and, like, you know, John Williams, or is it going to be a kind of a roundtable group of all four of them? What's the format look like now?
So I think what we're going to do, because obviously there's a lot of, I keep wanting to call it Bond 25, No Time to Die stuff to catch up on. So I think the first episode back, I think it's going to be a round table, which we've never really done before. And just to sort of see take the temperature of No Time to Die and see how everybody feels about it. And then after that, it'll be, you know, a rotating spot. So it'll typically be me with one other person, and we'll you know, talk some Bond basically.
That's fantastic. And I would imagine also that first episode, people can expect it a bit of an introduction of those individuals, getting to know what they're going to bring, excuse the pun, to the table, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like everybody involved has been featured on JBR before. So we always do the quick fire questions where it's, you know, who's your favorite Bond? What's your favorite film? Blah, blah, blah. So all of those guys have done those in the past. Brian was on one of the 30 Days of Spectre episodes where we did a podcast every day after Spectre came out. He was one of those. So you can pop back and listen to that to sort of find out more about Brian. Dan obviously has been on loads before, and JW's been on every month with the music stuff. So they're going to be reasonably familiar, but obviously we'll be sort of reintroducing everybody and maybe doing some quick fire stuff just to remind everybody of where everybody's loyalties and feelings lie. And of course that stuff changes over time as well. So you never know, they might give some different answers today than they did when they were previously asked.
That's true. People evolve. I mean, look at Tom Sears. I mean, this is an evolution of you and what you bring to the table, because you were supported by another individual. So, so paint a picture for us. I want to get a little bit more about Tom than JBR. Okay. So we both share something in that we have wonderfully overly attractive spouses that we obviously keep happy. And you have a great relationship, but you obviously go to your wife and you say, yeah, honey, I know that you thought we were taking a break, but I'm getting back into it. Is she elated because James Bond radio brings so much to your personality? She sees your passion, or was she like, here we go on this ride again?
Well, yeah, we're not actually married yet, so she's fiancé at this point. But
I'm just assuming things are going to happen.
Yeah, well, it's funny. We watched Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me, the other day, and she paused it and looked at me and she said, "You know, you're far more Austin Powers than you are James Bond." I just felt the need to tell you, which is absolutely true, 100%. No, to be honest, it was her needs a thank you for the podcast coming back, to be honest, because like I said, we got a lot of messages of people sort of sharing really quite personal stories about what the podcast had meant to them and helped them through some tough times and stuff. And it was, you know, the same for me. Helped me doing JBR, helped me through a very tough time as well. And there was one guy in particular, I obviously won't say any details or his name or anything, but he wrote in and I showed it to Catherine. I was like, Jesus, look at that one, you know, and she read it and she was like, oh, what? You can't stop. You've got to carry on. You know, it's just, you've got to do it. So I was like, all right. So it was kind of.
You can say my name. You can say my name. Okay. Fine.
But yeah, and it was one of those things where I read that message and she basically forced me. So it wasn't even my choice. So I had to do it to keep the missus happy, But no, she's good as gold, man. She loves it all. We went to Secret Cinema. Obviously, you and I went together, didn't we? We went earlier in the year, but we went back and she came along. And she loves it all. So I didn't see her the whole night. We went in together, and then she was off doing a mission. And I tell a lie. I came out of Venice and saw her come steaming across the room and run over to Miami over in the corner. And I was like, Jesus, she literally looks like she's on a mission. And I went, oh, do you want to grab something to eat or anything? And she's like, no, I'm on a mission. I've got to go. And that was the last I saw her all night, literally. So she gets stuck in. She's all good.
She sounds super fun. And I tell you, I talk to a lot of people behind the scenes. You should know how your ears are burning. That you have an amazing loyalty and connection to the Bond people, the Bond community, your friends. I can actually say that more so than any kind of official brand or social media. And the reason I know that is by the time this podcast comes out, or this video, Global James Bond Day would have passed. And what I was very impressed with, you were invited, we won't say what it is, but it would have happened by now, to an official Bond event in London.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And you actually said, very politely, no, thank you, because I'm having dinner with my mates. I'm having dinner with a bunch of JBR community. And at first I was like, holy cow, this guy's invited to this official event. He can go there, be fawned over, all this and that, the trappings. At the end of the day, he chose to be with his friends. And my respect level seriously went from here, it was pretty low, here to like off the charts. Tell me about that. I mean, that's something that drives you.
To be honest, mate, I think that was probably the wrong decision. I think, can you hook me up with that event and I'll take it back?
Huge decision.
No, I think I think it's just, to me, that's the best bit is the hanging out with the good people. There's a lot to be said. I think there's a lot of fan communities, in the grand scheme of things, not just talking Bond, where there's a level of sort of, if somebody has whether it's a podcast or even a website or whatever that becomes even somewhat successful, there's a certain type of person that kind of goes to their head a little bit, and they sort of, you know what I'm trying to say? Oh yeah. And I just, the moment I get a whiff of that, I'm just like, oh God. And I just, you know what I mean? I just find that such a turn off. And for me, the best bit is when Brian and I are walking through the pouring rain in Lake Como, just laughing at each other. What a ridiculous situation we're in. It's sitting up late at night with a couple of beers, chatting to everybody about, what I mean, you're a fine example of this. I saw we started a new JBR Facebook group the other day. And your first post on there was you in Cortina in the bobsleigh run, running down the bobsleigh run, talking about wives that put up with you. Running down the bobsleigh run, singing the theme tune of the film as you're running down, and your good lady is in the background eating something, and the look she gives you from behind, it's just the most weary look of like, oh my God, what is he doing? And that is the fun bit. You know what I mean? That is the cool bit. I love people who don't care about looking cool or being cool. It's just embracing that inner kid, like you say. And a perfect example, when we were in Switzerland, we went to the barn from Majesty's, where obviously Bond proposes to Tracy. And we were like, well, we've got to recreate the scene now. So we basically opened the barn. There's a little notch in the barn door where they actually shot through in the film, where you can see Blofeld and his dudes kind of skiing down the hill. So that notch was there. So we were trying to recreate the shots as we often do. And we were like, well, we need a car, obviously, for Bond and Tracy's arrival. So there's literally 5 of us, like 4 people with the wheels, like doing the wheels on the bus movement. And then there's a dude in front pretending to drive, like making car noises. We're all grown men. Like most of us are married and have children. Right. And we're just being the most ridiculous humans on the planet. But the great thing about that is everybody was just tears of laughter because it's so ridiculous, And that sense of sort of just trying to be a bit too cool for school, I just think it's just, you're missing the fun. You know what I mean? The ridiculousness of it is the fun. So yeah, I'm most excited. It's, you know, obviously it'll have passed probably by the time you put this out, but it's you know, Skyfall at the Albert Hall with the live orchestra. So, you know, we planned this months ago kind of thing. Everybody bought their tickets, big meal beforehand and all the rest of it. And it's just like, I'd rather be there hanging out with me. Don't get me wrong, right? If Daniel called me up and said, hey, do you want to come and hang out for half an hour and talk about No Time to Die? I would probably skip the dinner. But, you know, it's one of those things that I think that to me is where the fun is. It's the beyond a podcast or anything, it's the people involved. And I have to say, like the JBR lot who come to those events are just the best people. They are just really good, solid humans, you know, not a bad one amongst them.
Yeah, I have to say I'm in a total agreement, because one of the things I love about the events is that they involve other people that I call my friends. So if I was to go to a solo event and just do it, it would be really boring for me. Quite frankly, I would do it, but it'd be a bit of a slog. This is more like parties. And I'll tell you, it's one of the reasons why consciously years and years ago, when I was thinking like, oh, you know, the Bond experience should have a tagline. It's living like Bond. But the really important part is one moment at a time. It's these tiny little moments with people that mean something, not these big, giant, you know, monolith events. I mean, the Royal Albert Hall thing is a gravitational pull for all of your friends to get together. That's not going to be the main event. The main event is all of you experiencing this together, I think.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. You know, everybody's going to be coming suited and booted with the bow ties on and all the rest of it. So it's good. I mean, I've often said, like, life can easily be this thing where you are just in this treadmill of, you know, going to work, paying bills, all these responsibilities and all that crap, day after day after day. Yeah. And it's kind of like you can easily just fall into that rut easily. And ultimately, the things that are important is when you really embrace the fun side of things and make the effort to kind of join these kinds of things and go along and be ridiculous and have a laugh and enjoy those times, because those are the memories that you look back on. You know, you're not going to remember the 1,000 days in a row you went to work and grinded away at something. Right. That's not the important bit. Obviously you kind of have to on some level, but that's not the important bit. The important bit is connections with other people, fun times, those kind of funny late nights where you're all giggling about something stupid. That's the way forward, you know?
Okay, so Tom, we play a little game. I don't know if you've seen any of these Bond community interviews, but we play a little game. So I'd like to play a little game with you. Is that okay?
Yeah, let's do it.
Now it's the total fun part. I gave you the tough part, the sweat coming off of you. Now we're going to move on to something fun. All right, so it's Saturday. Right. Your lovely wife is planning your next excursion. Suddenly the phone rings. Phone doesn't ring anymore, but it buzzes. And you pick it up. Hello, Tom Sears, JBR. Yes, may I help you? I'm sure that's how you answer the phone. And on the other line is a senior level executive from Eon. And you're like, what the hell? And they go, Tom, listen, I know you didn't think that we watch and listen to you, but we do. And we appreciate everything that you do so much that the executives here at Eon have decided to grant you any Bond experience that you can imagine. It could be hang gliding with a cigar in your mouth. It could be jumping over a bridge. It could be being an extra on the film. It could be following Barbara Broccoli around with an ashtray. Anything that you want, that your heart desires. Tom Sears, what is that experience?
I'd quite like Olga Korolenko's phone number, if that's possible. That would be nice.
That's it.
That would be
the
best one. No, I tell you what. No, I think for me the ultimate dream would be being able to see myself on screen in a Bond film at some point. So, like for example, Anders from Sweden with Love, he features in Quantum of Solace in that sort of opera scene. He's in the party. You can just sort of see him in the background. That's all I need, man. You know, I could die a happy man if there was just that one moment where I could pause it, no matter how brief, and be like, that's me. I don't need to say anything. I don't need to do anything outrageous. If you can just see me in the background, I'd be happy with that, you know? So that would 100% be the thing. Yeah.
What kind of character would you want to play though? Like, what would you want to be?
Well, I suppose if you were going that deep, I suppose, well, you know, if the role was up for grabs for Bond, I would take that hand over hand, but I would probably spoil it for everybody. But I don't know. I guess I tell you what would be nice, actually. What would be nice is if they had a Thunderball style meeting of the 00s where they all come in and I was one of the other 00s. That would be cool, man. I would like that a lot.
That would be very, very cool. All right, Tom, one more thing, because this has been amazing, but we obviously want people to tune into the new James Bond radio. What are some of the things that we can expect from a vision standpoint of James Bond radio that everybody can sit here and be like, that's why I'm dialing in?
Oh my goodness. I guess more of the same in terms of feel. Like, you know, we never wanted it to be this sort of like stiff, overly produced thing. The feeling of being down the pub with your mates talking about Bond will definitely be there. That's the backbone of the whole thing, really. I think ultimately it's like I say, we're going to be finding our feet a little bit as we go, really, with all the new personalities involved and all that kind of stuff. I think ultimately it's going to be, do you know what? I don't even know is the answer to that. I think it's just, it's going to be, I think it's just we'll let it organically take its thing. I don't think, other than that sort of like mates with your feet up talking Bond down the pub, that's ultimately the core of everything. And I think we will just see how it goes. I've not even worked out how I'm going to say goodbye at the end of the show anymore, because I feel like without Chris to go bye with that's me, right. That's going to be a bit weird. So I'm going to have to think up a new way to say goodbye. And all those kinds of things. So yeah, I suppose tune in and just give it a spin and see how it goes, because we don't even know at this point. It might, like I said at the beginning, it might be a total disaster, but we'll do our best to entertain everybody.
Well, we're going to be there for the entertainment. We're in, man. We are totally in, buddy. Sir.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been Tom Sears from James Bond Radio. You're going to want to check them out. And David Zaritsky from the Bond Experience. And we will see you both very soon. Take care. Thanks for watching this episode. If you want to be up on the latest from the Bond Experience, just click on this subscribe and subscribe to our channel. You're going to get all the latest and greatest information, plus some exclusive content. And by the way, speaking of content, here's something especially for you, just because we know you. Talk to you soon.